Hello, and welcome to Marcellus Matters. My name is Douglas Shields, and I'm your host for this program. And I thank you all for joining us today. This is our first inaugural show, and we're here to bring you information about matters having to do with fracking and the exploitation of the shale gas industry in Pennsylvania. And I want to thank also our production staff here at Marcellus Matters, and we'll be presenting an ongoing series of programs designed to give you perspectives related to the numerous public policy issues that are afoot and what fracking presents in Pennsylvania. Our program will give you, the viewer, the opportunity to hear from people who are on the front line of this issue, the experts, the advocates, and the newsmakers, the people who are directly affected by fracking itself, and we hope that you find the program to be informative. Pennsylvania's corporate and political leadership frequently calls this exploration of the Marcellus a game changer. And on that point, there's plenty of agreement, both from its detractors and supporters. The point is though, what is the game? And what the rules of the game are going to be in Pennsylvania. We hope to provide some answers to that question on this program. And joining us today are three of township supervisors that have embarked on a rather dramatic course of action in challenging the passage of Act 13, which the State Assembly enacted in February, which basically changes the rules about how we do things in Pennsylvania, largely because of the singular industry. We want also to note that these three gentlemen represent, amongst others, 7 townships and municipalities in Pennsylvania, along with an environmental action group and a physician from Monroeville, Dr. Kahn, in the lawsuit against the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, naming the governor, the PUC chair, and the secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection as defendants in the suit. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with us today. We first have Andy Schrader, the Honorable Andy Schrader, a township supervisor from Cecil Township in Washington County. Brian Coppola is with us as well. He's a supervisor from the Township of Robinson in Washington County. And Mr. Darren Gabriel, he's from South Fayette Township in Allegheny County. Thank you very much for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having us. You bet. Let's get right to it. You have filed a petition for review in the courts of Commonwealth Court in Pennsylvania, challenging the act largely based on constitutional claims that the State Assembly has overstepped its bounds. But before we get into the lawsuit itself, let's talk a little bit about what precipitated the lawsuit, and that's Act 13 itself. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you all found as local government officials in Act 13 that caused you to basically file a landmark case.
Well, I think some of the basics, as we all know, Governor Corbett signed Act 13 into law on February 14, 2012. And essentially what Act 13 does is it creates 2 different sets of rules. One set of rules for the gas industry and another set of rules for everyone else. Also, we have constitutional protections in Pennsylvania, and we have a lot of those protections through our land use and zoning rules in our communities. Act 13 circumvents those rules. So
such as, Brian, what kind of rules are we talking about here that put this on your radar, so to speak, and raised your ire a little bit?
Well, we have what we call compatible uses in certain zoning districts. So wherever we live in our residential areas, we expect that there's going to be residential development. Mm-hmm. And we have that predictability. We buy a home in a residential community, we expect that community to be residential.
So that's like a bargain between the homeowner and the municipality. If I buy a house here, I have a reasonable expectation that I'll have other houses around me instead of a diesel repair shop or a chicken farm or something else like that.
Exactly.
So you're sorting out uses in the community and giving them a place.
Exactly, and that's what gives us equal protection under the law. What Act 13 does is it removes that and allows these heavy industrial uses into all zoning districts. The drilling, the compressor stations, the frac ponds or impoundments as they're called, pipelines, seismic testing, all those activities are allowed everywhere, near our schools, hospitals, homes. It's something that's totally unprecedented in this state.
So basically you're saying that the state, you had those powers locally at Cecil and Robinson and South Fayette to determine where these uses go. And what you're saying now is that the state assembly basically, for the sole use of the industry, just took that power from you?
That's correct.
And so now, how do you plan your community then?
It really makes it difficult when you do your zoning and your comprehensive plan, like we've discussed, is you have the opportunity to put your residential, your industrial, everything in the correct zone for compatible use. Well, it not only hurts your residents, if you think about it, the fact that you can put an industrial zone in a residential area, it also is bad for businesses also. I mean, if you have a hotel in your area there, and how can they be expected to have guests come and stay if there's going to be an industrial activity right next door 24 hours a day? So it's not only bad for your residents, it's bad for business.
Now, are you saying that the state is allowing drilling anywhere in Pennsylvania at this point under the law? Anywhere? Or are there any kind of restrictions, residential versus industrial, or let's say commercial, retail, that kind of thing?
Well, currently the way Act 13 reads is drilling is allowed in any zoning district. So essentially it's anywhere.
Permitted use.
It's a permitted use. There are some setback restrictions. However, buried deep within the Act 13 is a mandatory waiver that they have to be granted if they can't meet some of the setback restrictions.
Who grants that waiver?
The DEP, I believe. But it's important to point out that it's mandatory. It's not something that the government agency can say, no, we won't grant the waiver. The way the Act is written, it's mandatory. In the earlier versions of Act 13, it was actually the DEP had the discretion to deny the waiver. But that was changed, and that's one of the things that really stood out.
I think when we talked about this earlier, I think it went from may to shall.
That's right.
And that's to the small words, big reaction. Shall means that's it. So they have to grant a waiver even to go into a residential area. Right. I was just in Broadview Heights, Ohio, about 2 weeks ago. Interestingly, and they're going through the same thing up there now as what we've been going through here for several years. And I met a couple of people there, and they showed me photographs where in their subdivision at the end of the cul-de-sac is a big oil rig and drilling activity going right on, and then, $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 homes, not unlike what you're experiencing in your community. So that necessarily hasn't made anybody happy either, to find that out.
That's a good point that you bring up, Doug. It is a permitted use anywhere in your township or your municipality. And if you start looking at Act 13, it's going to give them the opportunity to start moving into the suburbs and getting closer to the cities. Because basically all you have to do is meet that 500-foot setback. And now you can't do anything but permitted in there under Act 13.
Now, I also heard that the setbacks were, 1,500 feet or something for a well pad or something like that. But but that kind of within, as you said, Brian, within the context of the law, that they can actually move closer.
Well, the well pad itself, I believe, is 300 feet to the edge of the pad.
Okay.
It's 500 feet from the well head, which is very close.
Right.
And in most areas, they have to be granted a waiver to go closer.
Is there any setback requirements, say, on a frac pond? These are earthen impoundments that might hold up to 2 million gallons of fluids that have been utilized several times. How close can they be?
They have a setback of 300 feet.
300.
And just putting them that close to a residence is going to be a great concern to many people.
Can a municipality under this act say limit how many wells or other parts of what they call the midstream infrastructure come to your communities?
No.
So you can have 2 or 200.
Well, that's one of the flaws in the act. There is no density restrictions on any of these activities, and again, that's unprecedented in the state. As local elected officials, we know that we can set density restrictions on residential areas. Imagine a neighborhood with an unlimited amount of bars or adult clubs. That just doesn't work. But what Act 13 does is it allows as many gas pads, compressor stations, impoundments, or frac ponds as they want. You really can't limit that. So no, there's no density restrictions.
It is a great concern, Doug, because I know one of the drillers in our township, in Cecil Township, has said in the future they plan on drilling 300 wells in Cecil Township. Wow. Now we have 11,000, with the last census, 11,700, so it's going to put a dramatic impact on our residents.
So how do you govern your municipality?
Well, I think it's impossible.
It's kind of rolling the dice every day.
It
You're
is.
making
Very much.
plans, and someone else is making counter plans, and then someone's going to bang heads.
And for the individual person living in the city or the suburbs or some of the rural areas, they really can't plan where they're going to live, where they're going to send their kids to school, because they have no predictability on what's going to be built next to them.
And that certainly would go to property value, I would
Absolutely.
imagine, and that goes to your tax base.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you read the act, you didn't like it, you lobbied against it pretty hard. I know all of you were in and out of Harrisburg quite frequently in the months leading up to. What was the reaction of the state legislature in your dealings with them?
Well, we actually went out to our state association first, and we spoke
And that's
to the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors.
Okay.
They represent about 1,455 municipalities across the state. That represents about 95% of the land area in Pennsylvania. We also spoke with the Lieutenant Governor at length and expressed our concerns to both of them. And Andy and I also lobbied quite a few of our representatives and senators. And the thing that really struck me was the fact that none of them really knew what was in the bill. They had talked.
None of them?
I would say.
Well, I would say, yeah.
I would say the ones that we talked to, not.
The vast majority that we talked to had very little knowledge of everything that was in there.
Right.
When you talked to them in Harrisburg, what you found out was they were pushing the impact fee and the environmental part of it and trying to say the new setbacks. When it came to the zoning, they were kind of just going, they're letting it fly under the radar is a good way to describe it. They were not bringing those points up because it does change the game tremendously with the zoning.
And that was a bipartisan effort, and I think it's noteworthy that, Brian, you're a Republican. We got two Democrats on either side of you, you know, which is maybe a lesson for the rest of the country. You know, both political parties can sit down and look to the best interests of people here. But, you know, you know, did you get a sense of partisanship, or did you see this kind of morphing over both sides of the aisle? How was your impression of that?
When we went in and talked to the different representatives or their chiefs of staffs, as we got the opportunity to explain to them, I think they really did start to get it, and they were saying, wow, I didn't realize that that was in there. But like you said before, there was a lot of pressure on them from lobbying to pass this bill.
Yes, I'm Dean, and sure. So you did the lobbying. I know that you contacted the Lieutenant Governor about this and had a conversation with him. Did he acknowledge that, yeah, maybe there are some problems, or